They will probably have a little pop-up in front of them and we will kick off. So thank you everyone for being here today. Welcome to our monthly WALA webinar series. We do this webinar style on Zoom, so don't be alarmed if you don't see yourself or your face on screen. You're not doing anything wrong. That's just the way this works. Helps everybody with paying attention. I know it can be easily distracting when you've got dozens of faces across the screen. So we are going to be talking today about the DNA of giving back. And each of our webinar series that we do on a monthly basis is intended to not just be, an interesting topic, but something that you can learn, something you can potentially incorporate in your business, and something that we see as kind of outstanding, or somebody in the community who's been an expert in that particular topic. And it is such a pleasure to have Jessica and Caitlyn from Blue Ridge Yoga on with us today. They were actually client number one at WALA, so we've been through a lot together for the first year and a half. And we've learned a lot about their business, and I just thought it was an absolute necessity to spotlight what they're doing in their community, but also help everybody here learn about how they've done it, because it's always interesting and exciting to see what people, what they're doing now, but the road to get there is always, different. And it's, I think as entrepreneurs, good to know it doesn't just happen overnight and things aren't, always what they seem. And we can empathize with each other on that. So Jessica, just a little bit about Jessica. She is the owner and founder of Blue Ridge Yoga in Knoxville, Tennessee. And Jessica, you've lived all over the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have. That's another thing. If you want to bring me back to talk about travel, I'm happy to.
Maybe we need a WALA travel webinar, travel blog. But I'm excited to hear how that played into what you're doing in your community. And then Caitlyn is the manager, and Caitlyn has been through thick and thin with us as well. She's gotten to know WALA, gotten to know the community, but also Caitlyn's the one who does a lot of the execution on all of the events and all of the work that they do in their community. So it's a lot of, big picture strategy and dedication from Jessica, and execution from Caitlyn. So I thought it would be important or nice to have both of their perspectives on here. But
And
let's,
Theodore.
and Theodore, I'm so sorry. How could I forget? This is Theodore, who is equally as important and plays just as big a role in the studio operations at Blue Ridge. For those of you that have been on our webinars before, typically we do this as kind of like a presentation. I ping questions in, you guys ask questions. This one is going to be a little bit more conversational, and certainly lots of takeaways for you that hopefully you can implement, but a little less preachy. Yeah, we do love Theodore. And a little more of just enjoying a conversation. So if you do have questions, if you wouldn't mind, let's use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll be able to watch those and filter them into Jessica and Caitlyn as we go. It's a little easier for me to watch one place than it is all spots. So without further ado, we can get started. I thought with just the beginning and kind of the intro, I'd love to hear in general how this all started, how you created a studio and a business that was focused around a commitment to giving back in your community and even to the broader world.
Well, thank you, Laura. I'm very honored to be here today. This is one of my favorite topics, so it's easy to discuss. So I started the business in 2015. Prior to that, I had, like Laura said, been living around the world, and I had witnessed a lot of things, from kind of growing up in suburbia America to seeing, poverty firsthand and ways that many Americans hadn't seen and I hadn't been exposed to at that time. So I kind of had that background. And then right before my studio, I had been held at gunpoint, machete point, and kind of had a little PTSD going on. And so I needed to move home, which was actually Knoxville, Tennessee. So
Mm.
starting the business was not my intention. It just was in a way destined. It was ordained because I actually tried not to do this and it happened anyway. So if you do you know if you're actually doing something you're meant to be, it's like you can't step away, you can't deny it, it just happens.
Yeah.
Um, and so Blue Ridge to me was meant to happen. And what I had learned previously, because I had been doing yoga in like New York City, Singapore, London, these big like metropolitan communities of yogis, is that I always felt like there was something missing because, I came for inner peace to these, yoga studios that I went to, and we became better versions of ourselves, but there was never like a follow through to the community.
Mm.
Um, so I just felt like there was like a missing link that I was hyper aware of. Before that, I had been like listening to Sean Corn's talks. We talked about that, Laura, like we were motivated by her. I had, been part of Africa Yoga Project in New York, because that was kind of started by like groups of people that I hung out with. So like I was involved in a little bit of using yoga as a vehicle for social change, but I wanted to bring that into like a broader sense.
Yeah.
And I also just want to say that if you're on this webinar or if you have a yoga studio, you have a desire to give back. Like nobody owns a yoga studio just to make money. Like this
Yeah.
is a love project. This is a passion. You can't do this work without it being a passion, because we all know how much effort it takes. And so if you don't love it, you can't do it. And so there is a desire in all of us. And I just am very excited to kind of talk about how to move forward and into making this a bigger thing, because this will create a better brand for you. It will bring people in, and it's also going to help you from burning out.
Yeah, that's really the key right there, I think. So let's talk a little bit more tactically. So when we think about what it takes to weave this into the DNA of your company, what are some of the keys that you find are, the tactical requirements for executing raising money and for making this something that you can do consistently?
I think the right word is consistent,
Mm.
because it's not like you get recognition from doing one or two events. It has to be done over and over and over again, because the events that we do are not like big ticket items. It's not like come to a black tie for $200 and we raise like 100,000 that night. These are little events done every single month, you know?
Mhm.
So like you said, you have to be able to dedicate that time for consistency. Um, so I'm going to share some of our secrets on what really works consistently that you don't have to put so much time and effort in, because Caitlyn and I have tried to decrease how much effort we put into things and just, revising things so that it's easier, because I kind of feel like, especially after the pandemic, I just want things to be easy. I don't want to fight so hard. I just want it to sell.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I think we all want that. Okay, so I guess when we talk about those events, so by the way, I guess we should take one quick step back. You are raising most of your money through monthly events. Is that kind of the tactical way that you're doing that?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll talk more about that. There is one thing that we do that is not a monthly event that is also really easy, if you
Mm.
want me to go ahead and share that.
Yeah, go for it.
So we also do something with Custom Ink fundraising, which if you do the fundraising portion of Custom Ink and you could talk to them, it's easier because you're not purchasing any merchandise. You're having people order their correct size online, and then Custom Ink, and then you'll dedicate this fundraiser for a certain organization. So we do that every single year for the homeless in Knoxville. And it's always really fantastic. And people, we do sweatshirt sales in January. So we just did ours. We raised $760. So it's not like a ton of money, but if you think about it, it's a win-win because your students get a sweatshirt with your logo on it and you still, donate to the homeless. So I think that's also a really easy thing to do. We sprinkle that in. What would you say, Caitlin? Maybe like 3 times a year?
Yeah,
Something
we
like
always do like winter sweatshirts. That's like our number one. People are
that.
always
Mhm.
asking us like, when are we getting our sweatshirts? And then sometimes we'll do just one in the spring or one in the fall for like
Mhm.
just a specific event. And we always have them design like something silly with like theater on it because everyone
Yeah.
loves
Yeah.
theater
He's
over here.
usually on everything. So
How could he not be?
yeah.
Okay, and so with custom ink, just a quick tactical question on that. Can you choose any charity you want? Yeah.
Yeah. And you can get it designed by their art team.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's so it's simple because before we started using custom ink fundraising, we would order everything and then you would have merchandise left over. So this is a simple way to do it in an effective way that doesn't require anything from you.
Amazing. Okay, well, there you go, guys. That is one quick, easy takeaway from this. Okay, so let's talk events then. First of all, tell us about your first couple events and then how your world looks different today from the first couple that you did.
Okay, so we were getting into like really big events in the beginning. We called this an evening of self-care. It was very successful. Okay. So I do want to say that, but the amount of effort that we put into it was taking away from our day job.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I said, like, you need to like make sure that this is simple. So that was kind of like, how would you describe it, Caitlin? We had so many moving
It
parts.
was multi-layered. So like you bought a ticket to attend and we would have like a nice spread of food and we had a bunch of vendors like local businesses that would set up like a booth and they would have stuff to sell and like portions of their sales would be donated. So it was like
Hmm.
the ticket and then the portion of the sales. We had live music one time. So we had the tickets at like $75 a head just to come.
Yep.
And then there was also a silent auction. So we actually had like a lot of our students in the community like helped us gather a bunch of really cool items. And so there was an auction as part of it. So it was a lot of like, it took months, to reach out to all of these different businesses, collect the items, get them to
Yeah.
come set up their booth and all that stuff. So it was a lot of work, but it did, like said, pay off with the amount that we would raise.
Yeah.
It did pay off, but to me, like it's a little too complex for us as studio owners to do something like that because we did not pay as much attention to like our day job when this was going on. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't use that as like, go do this, because it's kind of just too much work. We also just started just doing, a yoga class at a brewery. Okay. Which was okay, like back 7 years ago, but now to me, you need a little bit more like spice to it to get people to come. Like, okay, it's
Mhm.
just yoga in a brewery. Uh,
Everybody has that now. Even
yeah,
breweries don't even do it for fundraisers. Just like if there's a
no,
brewery, they have like a weekly yoga class.
yes, yeah. So now in Knoxville, it's just like we have so many breweries. We've kind of come down from like Asheville, that vibe.
Mm.
And so, yeah, they just have, a lot of our students that we train just work at a brewery once a week. And it's kind of become a big part of the yoga world. So it's not enough to just do that like it was when I opened.
Okay, so let's fast forward to, the last couple of months. What do your events look like now as compared to the very beginning?
So I'm going to just tell you because I want to just give you some ideas to
Yeah,
inspire you.
great.
So two of the ones that I'm working on, Caitlin hasn't fully agreed to one of them, but for Easter, I'm trying to get a hold of some dwarf bunnies
Oh my
and
God.
little chicks to like do yoga with little chicks. So
Goats aren't enough anymore. We need dwarf bunnies and chicks.
exactly,
I'd be more interested in that anyway.
right? Well, you got to keep it fresh.
Is that the one Caitlin hasn't agreed to yet?
She's afraid of the
Yeah,
little chicks. It's a
I
good
don't have
point, Caitlin.
I'm worried the chicks are too small and I don't know how to handle that.
Someone's gonna step on one.
Where are they who's gonna provide the chicks? Those are my type of
It are questions. They are good questions that we haven't worked out yet. I was just kind of envisioning you come in, you grab a chick, put the chick on your mat, and like how happy that would make people.
Yeah.
Another event that we're thinking we're getting coordinated, it's in the works. So this is going to happen is that we have a beautiful, beautiful theater in Knoxville, Tennessee. And if you have one in your area, that's another great place to reach out to. So we've done 3 or 4 years now where we do yoga on the stage and we donate it to a different nonprofit. But because this is like our 4th or 5th year, we need something else. You know, it was just yoga on the stage and then you get a tour of the studio from the executive director. But now we're going to bring in a local nonprofit that teaches music lessons to underprivileged children. And we're going to have them come in and like play for us as we're doing yoga on the stage. So I really love partnerships and I love like multi-partnerships where we're supporting like 2 organizations in one, the theater and bringing attention to how wonderful our theater is, as well as another nonprofit who will be there. So that's in the works. But some other suggestions of things that have worked well for us would be like doing yoga at your zoo. That's really fun. We did that for a few years and Caitlyn actually taught those classes because she has this like, you know, when people teach like kids yoga and they make it like a whole storybook theme.
Yes.
So Caitlyn is really good at that. So she had us all like making different animal noise. You know, people like to be silly. It's fun to be silly, you know? So it was a really fun class to do yoga at the zoo. Last Christmas, we did yoga at a historic home. Yeah, so it's this like beautiful historic home decorated for Christmas. And we went in and you did like yoga out in this like heated tent. And then we had like Christmas cocktails and Christmas cookies for you after. And my God, that sold out in 1 hour, you know,
That's
because
amazing.
everyone wants a Hallmark movie moment, right?
Well, as you're talking through all of these ideas, what I'm hearing is what a cool creative outlet. And you mentioned like helping you avoid burnout. Does that really inspire you guys to stay excited about the business when you get to do things like this?
Yeah.
I think so. I think for us, like we want to do stuff that makes us excited because that brings the same energy to our students. So, but when we've done the same event kind of several times over and over, then we have to start thinking again of like, okay, and what's something else cool that we can do that we haven't done yet?
Yeah.
And that makes people really excited.
Okay. Awesome.
It's like the Olympics. We have to raise the bar all the time.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned to me when we were kind of prepping for this that choosing the right partners is really important, and you had to learn some lessons there. Would you speak to, the critical pieces of finding the right charity partners or the right people in your community to work with?
Yes. So, you have this vision, right? And these core values of giving back. So you need to find people that also have those. So as far as venues, we look at like if we're working with a brewery, and if we work with a brewery now, it's usually like 2-step, like we're working with a brewery plus little puppies are coming,
Okay. Yeah.
I said, we're basic.
Racing.
So we want to make sure that the people that we're working with are supporting us by like, if we share a story, the venue is also resharing. If we post it on Facebook and make them like a partner in that they agree and they also post it because it's supposed to help both of us. Again, I love partnerships. So we want to work with like the venues that share those core values and really care. And some of our venues have been so generous. It's like, we are so excited. We raised $2,000 from an event and like the owner will be like, I'm adding 500, like we get that a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because everything is a ripple effect, so that's really, important for us. The other thing is the organizations themselves that we work with. We want one that they care. Okay. So like, again, these are monthly things over and over again. It's not a big amount at one time. So you want organizations that care that you're sending them $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So some, little nonprofits in your area are going to be so excited that you raised 1,000 and brought attention to them, or raised 2,000, or if you have a partnership, you can do that every single year for them. And then we want them to share the event on their stories and stuff too, because we're helping them. We want them to also help us. And we have a lot of people who don't do that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. And then it was also really nice to have a representative come and talk at the beginning of each event so that they can really say like, hey, look, your donation went here. This is what you did today. Again,
Awesome.
making people like the hero of their stories.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, Kat was asking how, like, some of the marketing strategies for these events. I imagine you don't just snap your fingers and post one Instagram post and they fill up. So, or maybe they do now because you've created such a consistent, like, bar raising experience. But maybe when you started, or your marketing strategies, how they've evolved, that would be helpful.
So it's definitely easier for us now because people know and expect us to do fun events. So definitely true what you said, but we still do several things to market the events. And I think we did it even more, in the past years as we were growing the awareness that we were doing these events. We obviously always have it on our website. We make a Facebook event for that, and we usually add like the venue or the charity organization as a co-host so that it shows up on their pages as
Mm,
well.
okay,
Which
so
that's
creating
another
an
thing.
event on Facebook with the partner as a co-host.
Yes, and that's something that you might have to like check with them because sometimes people don't like accept the invitation to be like a co-host of your event, so then it doesn't like show up on their page.
Got it.
But that's important. We have announcements in our studio that we read like at each class, and so we verbally tell our students like every class that they come into um, that we're having this event, and then just stories, lots of stories on Facebook and Instagram, depending
Google
on,
My Business.
yeah, Google My Business, adding a post there so that people can find it. Basically, anywhere people can find you, there should be like a post about it.
That's interesting. You can post on Google My Business so that it shows up, and then you can remove that after the event's over.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing too is that we try to again get partnerships with different influencers in Knoxville. So we have a partnership with some people now called New to Knox. And we send them their events and they have tons of followers and they post,
Mm.
some of that too. We're trying to partner with Lululemon in kind of the same way. So we try to also take advantage because again, it's infectious when you care so much. People like really, anytime now that they talk about us, they're like Blue Ridge Yoga, who gives back.
Mm. So it's
So
become a big part of your identity in the community.
it is. And but it like what I want to say is though, it took a while for that to happen. It really wasn't until we reached 100,000 that we got featured in the paper and like all this excitement. And then people kind of start seeing that as our brand. Um, and so
Yeah, and I guess that's a really good point. Tracking the amount of money that you're bringing in or that you're donating has to be a big part of this, and making that something that is intentional and that you talk about.
Yeah.
yes.
So we just keep a spreadsheet that we list like anytime we do an event, anytime like we donate something to a silent auction, like we have all of that being tallied.
Awesome.
And we used to have, it's been a while, Jess, we used to have a poster in the studio that was like 50,000 or something.
Yeah. Now we're
So
at almost 150.
Amazing. That is amazing. Well, Michael was asking, talk about how you choose outside of, obviously there are some good partners. Did you choose charities because you were super passionate about that cause, at least initially, and start building relationships there? Or did you choose them because they were well known in the community? How did you decide who you work with?
That's a great question. So, I guess my feedback for you would be to kind of see like what do you care about? I mean, I actually for me it's really like about women is what I like to care about, but the things that really sell are anything to do with animals, which I also care about, as you can see.
Yeah.
If you post anything about animals, they really sell out because, animals have like our heart in a way that like is really special. So anything that we do with kittens, puppies, I know goat yoga was like really big, but
Yeah.
anything like that is a really big sell. But I'm so a lot of times too, I'm asked to be on the board after helping out with a nonprofit. So if you start really fundraising, just know that that will happen, that they'll reach out to you and you'll need to decide whether you have the time to donate to that. But we've helped so many different types of organizations. So
Mhm.
one of the things that we do right now that really is fantastic and it works and it's so simple is to do a sound bath. It's really hot right now, at least in where we are, and we have that set up once a month. And in our Facebook community board for Blue Ridge Yoga, we have our students vote every month for where they want the money to go. So they have an active hand in deciding that, not just us being like, oh, I want to help cancer support. It's, they're choosing, and we have that every month. And the sound bath, I don't really need to advertise it. It fills up every single time. It's no work for me. And we give back like $700 every time. So
Wow,
that's $700 a month already.
that's amazing. Awesome. Yeah, and it's consistent. So there's something that they rely
Yes.
on every month, and it might be that the people don't even, it's not even about the giving back for them. Hopefully it is, but they just love the sound bath because it's a cool experience and it's monthly. So
Well, that's kind
awesome.
of like what we want our events to be like, that you would come to them regardless if they were donated. Being donated is just like the cherry on top. But all our events, we want them to be fun, creative, exciting, peaceful, everything that
Mhm.
it speaks for itself already.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I mean, whatever that specific charity is might not resonate with everybody, but if the event is amazing, again, it's the cherry on top. Um, let's talk a little bit about how this has impacted your brand. When you started the studio versus where you are seen today, you mentioned that, you guys were featured in the paper. So do you think that impacts client retention and hiring teachers and retaining teachers? I guess speak to that a bit.
So when you came to us, actually, was it like I don't know, when you asked us to do this. So after that, the next day, this is just an example, a professor from the University of Tennessee drove down, and she was Ukrainian, and she was like, hey guys, there's a situation right now in Ukraine. The children are getting hypothermia. They don't have electricity on the front lines. I need your help. And it's like, it's kind of like she came to us out of like everybody in high school to like help her. And of course, I was like, well, we'll do it. So I was like, okay, think of an event that can happen in a week. Let's see. Like, I'm like, okay, we could do deep breath class. I know a Ukrainian violinist already. Let me pull him in so he could play for us. And we ended up raising about
I have
$3,000.
goosebumps right now. What an incredible
Yes.
$3,000.
Yeah, close to $3,000, which helped like 46 or 47 kids not get hyperthermia in Ukraine. But what was great is that I actually got pulled in to do a news thing on our local news channel. And they interviewed me that morning, and they're like, we heard you're doing this thing for Ukraine. Can you talk about it? And I got to talk about that. But we also had like this little section. I was teaching them yoga. And that all happened because of, again, this like reputation for giving back. And then later that day, someone who just has a class pack came in, and he just said, hey, Jess, I just saw what you're doing. I'm sorry I didn't realize what you've been doing this whole time. But now that I know, I'm going to tell everyone. He's like, no one like you should go out of business.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Yeah, that is pretty amazing. Wow. Well, huge, huge high fives all around. Amazing.
but I also think like having this reputation, like if it's so passionate and strong for you, you call in first the students who also share this vision. And then you call in the staff as well, because, you all might have the same experience, but, when I started, I'm like, okay, what teacher has like cool music and like, whatever, that's who I want to hire. And now it's like, okay, I'm only hiring people that share my core values. I can teach them how to play cool music or whatever, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
But the core values is the most important thing to me, because they need to share this vision, because the vision just gets stronger, and it has this effect that, like, even, you know, if we're doing like a food drive and an organization has asked us and other businesses in Knoxville to do the same thing, like when when they come, they're like, wow, you guys have given back like 3-4 times everyone else, you know, because it's just like this generosity that's been like built up in the studio.
Yeah. Oh, that's so incredible. Well, so brass tacks question here. Kat was wondering, when you sell tickets to these events, so like your sound bath, for example, if a ticket is $20, do you donate that full $20 to charity, or are you taking out teacher pay, credit card fees, sales tax, any of those things?
Yes. Okay. I knew this would be a question. So this is kind of up to you. We have the freedom not to take out. So if we're doing a sound bath, we will take out. She gives us a discount because she cares, but it takes, you know, it takes her an hour to put everything together and an hour to take everything apart. But we give her $100, we take that out. But
Mhm.
for everything else, we do not take out any share for us. So that's just something that we like to say, that 100% is donated. It's important to us. Whether you have that freedom or not, that's completely up to you, and it'll be great regardless if you take out like your fees.
Right, right. And I think you'll find with teachers, especially if this is like a collaborative effort in finding the organizations that you support, you'll find teachers that are excited about that. And even if you pay them something, you know, maybe it's not the whole $100, it's, you know, 60. And so there's a little bit of give and take there. But that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so Caitlyn, since you're kind of behind the scenes, oftentimes making a lot of this happen, what would you say takes the most time when you're actually working on the, you know, execution of one of these events?
I think just the most time consuming part is getting the event posted everywhere, because there's several different places to put it. So you need, like, to set it up in Walla, set up the pricing, you need a description of the event. And I like to add in information about the organization if we can somewhere on the website, so
Mhm.
we can learn more about where they're giving their money to. But the main thing is just or getting all the details of the event and then putting it out there in all the places that it needs to be shared, I would say is the most time consuming part. And I
Okay,
think you
yeah.
can knock that out in like an hour if you had your description ready and just said, okay, I'm posting everything right now. Like, you could get it all done pretty quickly.
Okay. Well, we can also, as a follow-up to this in our Facebook group, post the like, okay, what is your checklist of places that you're posting? Like, you know, you said you created in Walla, you probably created an app announcement, right? In Walla, I would imagine. You've got your Google My Business, Instagram, Facebook, on the website. Is there anything else that you add to that?
Local channels, like, you know, if you have a place in your city that you can post events, we do that too. And again, try to connect to influencers who also care. And again, giving back is a ripple effect. We know this from studies now, that if you do something, you know, it follows through and people share that vision that you do. And especially if you're really passionate about something. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, perfect. Michael J was asking, is the client getting the tax receipt or the studio? How do you do specific receipts from the
yeah,
charity to the individuals?
these are great questions. No, we don't give them a tax receipt. We just have it as a studio. And you know, honestly, I thought that in the beginning we did that because I thought that mattered a lot. When we talked about the events that we started off with at Cancer Support Community. But we realized that it's so much easier if we don't do these things, again, because we're doing this so often. And people don't ask me.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, the money is going to the organization, right? So I mean, probably they can request that from, I mean, like they have a receipt from you for the purchase. So they could probably approach the organization with like, hey, here's my receipt from that. Can I get a tax, you know, receipt or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the prices for these items are not high priced, they're
Mhm.
not like the hundreds. So maybe people don't care if it's like under 50. I don't
Mhm.
know, but I
Yeah.
don't ask that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I liked that you mentioned that you want to make these events approachable so everybody in every budget can afford to make it. Um, do you ever think about, adding in higher tickets events again to do more, or is that phase of your your fundraising over?
We I would say we haven't thought about that because we're on track. Our goal is to reach 200,000 when we hit year 10. And so, we're close to that. We know how we're going to get there easily. So we haven't thought about doing a big event yet, but like you said, we always like to be creative and think outside the box. So I'm not saying it can't happen. But yes, I think, everyone enjoys giving back. I think people just need to be offered an easy solution to give back because
Yeah.
that's what we all want to do. And it's kind of, again, this process of yoga and finding this like better versions of ourselves. It goes into then for like making our community better. And so everybody wants to. And I think if you just give your people an easy solution to do so, they'll take it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, back in my corporate days prior to starting my yoga life, I started just bringing together people on my team to do volunteer events. And then I've carried that through in every company and organization I've worked through is putting together group volunteer events. And I find that people who have never volunteered in their life are so happy to do it, but it's because you've literally taken care of every one of the logistical hurdles and you just say, show up here on this date. And then they do it and they love it and they're so happy, but it's just making things easy for people is the key. So
Exactly. Exactly.
even though that might be hard on you sometimes, but it sounds like you guys have gotten over the hump of that. Um, One thing that you mentioned, and I think this is a good way to kind of tie a bow on this. You mentioned that as your brand starts to reflect your work, you get floods of requests. So talk to us about how you handle the reach outs and how do you choose when you have lots of people asking you for help, or do you say yes all the time?
So we are at the point now where we are starting to plan our whole year at one time.
Wow.
So now it's kind of like when someone sends in a request, it's usually like, okay, let's see if this is something we can do in the future. But like with the Ukraine event, like that was like we had already planned our whole year. That was just very spur of the moment. But I think we donate to silent auctions a lot. So
Mm,
if we don't have room to do an event, like we might say like, thank you so much. Like we have our full calendar. Can, is there like a fundraiser that you're doing that we can donate something to? And we do a lot of donations that way as well.
okay. Yeah, so just know that if this becomes a consistent effort, you will be somebody that, people think of and you've got to be prepared to make decisions on that.
And it comes back to what we talked about earlier with knowing or trying to decide if the group that's reaching out to you is going to help actually support the event. And now that we've worked with several organizations, we have kind of like our favorites that we know are going to come through and help make the event a big success.
Hmm.
So that just took us time to figure out, with trial and error of what
Yeah.
organizations we want to continue supporting. And then if we have space in our calendar to maybe like try something new, then we'll add that in and see how it goes and evaluate if we want to do it again.
Yeah. Good call. So John was asking, John, we'll list the different marketing efforts that they've mentioned already. We talked a little bit about marketing, but he said, raising money is always a priority for us, but letting the public know and kind of marketing or selling it feels inauthentic sometimes. So just, is there a way that you balance that and make sure that you come back to it's not about us, it's about them?
It's a really good question. Because yes, the thing is, we're not an individual, we're a business, and we need to celebrate because it is It's a village, you know, like we have our students helping us plan things too and helping us prepare. So like it's not just us making like the decisions. It's not like just top down. So when we promote that we did this, it's a celebration for all of us. And we just make sure that we have that vibe because it is. I mean, we couldn't do anything without our students, and our students are the most generous people. And it's because, you know, this vision was set from the beginning that they are, you know, that way. And so I understand your question, and I understand when you said like, you know, so but it doesn't feel like it's an ego boost for us because we're like, this is amazing. Like, you know, for the Ukraine, 46 kids now will not, you know, suffer from hyperthermia or frostbite because we did this together, and it feels like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just hearing you talk about it, you can tell it's authentic. And I think that's a big part of it is as long as it is authentic, the community will feel that, you know, it's not going to feel like a marketing ploy to just get people in your door.
No, it's too hard to be a marketing ploy. Like you would choose easier things if it was just a marketing ploy. This takes more effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna start to wind it down. There's one more question from Johnny said, you know, I've seen some studios that have options to add a fee onto your memberships for like, or have a different membership where a portion of that membership is donated back to a local charity or to a scholarship fund. Have you ever tried anything like that?
So we do offer scholarships, and honestly, we offer them to anybody who asks us. When we try to do something where people paid for the scholarship, especially in the pandemic, it got really kind of fuzzy and confusing. I know, Caitlyn, we were trying to figure out how like this worked. It just felt like very convoluted, and I like things to be really simple. So that's the thing. I'm like, this is our price, and we have it on there. If you need a scholarship, tell us. And people do, but I don't think people take advantage of it at all. So we don't have like 100 requests. We just have a few being like, hey, I used to be a member, and now I got in this car wreck and I can't afford anymore, but I still want to come. And we'll be like, sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I like that people being able to contribute. So I really do like that because it needs to have this feeling of, again, it's like it takes a village and it's this like community effort. So I like that. We never got that to work personally. But I still think that you get that with the events. And anytime you have people like help you to set up or do anything like that, it also has the same effect.
Right.
So
And John was asking if there's a way to technically set that up in Walla. Not like specifically for that, but as you've said it, I'm like, okay, I've got to see if there's kind of a way we could do that where it would be easy to track. My initial thought was like, oh, you could create a retail item, but then you'd have to have that taxed differently or whatever. So anyway, let me think on that and get back to you. Sorry,
So
Caitlin.
oh no, that's okay. I just remembered something else that we do that's really easy for fundraising that we do quite a bit, and that is to do drawings. So like we just did one for 2 front row seats to Hamilton at the theater.
Whoa.
And we raised like $1,500 for that. So we just have like a jar at the desk, and it could be like whatever. Like we've had like gift baskets from like a cheese shop that we had donated, or we might raffle off like we have a massage therapist, so like you can.
Oh yeah, we do that a lot.
Massage. So it's super easy to just make a retail item as like a ticket. We do like 1 ticket for 10, 3 for 25, and people mostly just do 3 for 25. And it's really easy. It's just on your desk. People purchase tickets, and it's a super easy way to raise a little bit.
And do you get those items donated typically that you're drawing for? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Somebody donated 2 front row tickets to Hamilton. That's amazing. Okay, awesome. Well, guys, I really, really appreciate you sharing all of this insight with us today. I think this is just a tremendous gift to have somebody like you in our community who's doing this on such a consistent basis and has created a brand that, you know, speaks volumes about who you are. And we're grateful for all the insight. I do want to say, if you have further questions, or if you think of things, or if you're watching this on a recording, feel free to pop into the Facebook group and you can ask further questions in there. And Jessica and Caitlyn, I'm sure I'll tap you on the shoulder if you're not in there to see them and make sure that you pop in and answer. But we would love to hear any ideas that you have as a follow-up, or if you've had successful events or consistent opportunities for giving back. Please share away in there. It's a great place to continue the conversation. So
Thank you, Laura. And I just want to end by saying that, like, to me, this is what helps burnout being a studio owner, because again, it's this, we're all open 7 days a week, holidays, everything. So if you can kind of look at and see, like, not only, you get those, like, I feel so great after yoga, we all get that. But if you can look back and be like, wow, this is what we did together, this impact, and it's amazing.
yeah. Yeah. And it's not just you, it's the whole community, which is so beautiful. So well, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate you being here. And for those of you watching on recording, please let us know if you have any questions. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Bye, Theodore. Is he there? Bye, buddy. God, I love him. All right. See you soon.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.